In the 1960s, the Smothers Brothers, via their comedy hour hit television series, were almost like the counterculture's representatives on mainstream television. They had the wild bands, they pushed the edge, they had Pete Seeger singing about Vietnam, they got banned, they got criticized, helped organize Monterey Pop Festival. Tommy was hanging about with John and Yoko, like up in Toronto, doing the bed-in stuff. I mean, they were part of the counterculture. And as they discussed in this interview with Bob Costas, by the time the 70s and 80s rolled around, they weren't even together, having to just do summer stock and all kinds of, not primetime television stuff to survive and continue their careers. But by the end of the 80s, they got the comedy hour back briefly. And the focus of it was Yo-Yo Man. Tommy had become a yo-yo advocate, and a bunch of this interview is dedicated to yo-yo. Yo-yo, there would have been so much better to talk about John and Yoko, yo-yo, and Yoko, yo-yo, Yoko, yo-yo, Yoko!
I'd like to make the announcement because it's very personal, and I am excited, and I think this is as good a time as any to say that I am very pleased to have signed with another major network. I'm signed to host my very own game show. I am thrilled to death, and you can't believe after all the years I've spent with Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, it's going to be a pleasure to have my own show.
Well, how do you mean that? What do you mean by that?
I think it's rather obvious, Tom. For instance, every week we're on a different time, a different night. We're on, we're off. Our fans don't even know where the Smothers Brothers are going to show up next. So now at least I'm going to be on 26 straight weeks, at least. Every night, same time, same network, and it's going to be just a real pleasure.
Yeah, well, what about me? What about me?
What about the act?
Yeah, what about the act?
Come on, Tom. Come on, let's face it. The act is getting a little bit trite, don't you think? 30 years doing the same thing? Come on. How many years you want to milk it?
Maybe another 30.
Oh, come on, Tom.
Thanks for staying up later. And now, following in the path of Siskel and Ebert, for the second time, we have two guests on the show because these guys cannot be separated. They are, of course, the Smothers Brothers. I'll throw this one out. Either one of you can grab it. Where did the idea for the act first come from? Because as I understand it, you were folk singers, and that was fairly common to have two guys together just singing folk songs in the late 50s, early 60s. How did the Smothers Brothers act evolve out of that?
Well, I'd take it. Number one, we're brothers, so we were, from the time we were little kids, we were hanging out together. The actual formal sense of the Smothers Brothers, the comedy team, developed around college time in San Jose State. We were singing folk songs, and the guy left, and we have an automatic disagreement, like the other two
Well,
guys.
the guy left. We were a trio. We had been a quartet in high school singing, Shaboom and all those kind of songs of the day, the Four Freshman era. Went to San Jose, and then the Kingston Trio were in vogue then. They had just been smash hit. So we got a trio together. Now the third guy left after a year. But, and we got to be the duet, and that's where the form of us really arguing or having a relationship. That year we were a trio. It was Tom talking and Bobby Blackmore and myself tuning. It didn't really work. We didn't have the sense of comedy, say, like the Limelighters and their trio. And the first time we did a show in front of an audience was at the a little beer place in San Jose called the Kerosene Club. And that's the first time I noticed Tommy could get a laugh, because we were just singing regular songs and never had to introduce him. This was a little beer bar.
I noticed it earlier, but
he
it
noticed.
came to his
a little
attention
slow.
a little bit later.
And so that's really the birth of the Smothers Brothers, right up in San Jose State. And it happened to me. It happened before I had an idea we were going to do it.
How much of the chemistry between you on stage is the genuine chemistry day to day?
I would say about 95%. What we do on stage is close to what we do off stage.
Yeah. Not exactly how we do it. Like you'll find off stage, I'll probably be a little bit more like Tommy is on stage. We'll have pieces of each other's personalities. But we'll be...
So you push them to extremes for the purpose of the
you exaggerate. Yeah.
We exaggerate our relationship. Dickie's actually more fun off stage. I mean, he's more interesting. He lives life fuller. I'm pretty well a one-sided coin in the sense that when you flip it, it very seldom lands on the edge. and if it has the two sides, and so it comes up the same way. It's one-dimensional.
And he enjoys himself.
Yeah.
I read a quote of yours saying you wish that you could enjoy life as much as he seems to.
But Tommy enjoys his at his own choosing. I'm a little bit more easy. You know, I could be in a bummer and someone comes up in the airport and I can have a fun chat with him, or a companion in an airplane. But Tommy doesn't do that. He has his time. It's generally, he's a night person. I think he's part vampire. I was just saying that, you know, he gets color when the sun goes down. He doesn't want to go to bed till the sun comes up. And
so this is the perfect show for you then.
Your
people are out here watching 1:30 in the morning or whatever.
He doesn't suck blood or anything, but it says his clock. Our clocks are totally different.
You get tired of people approaching you and expecting you to be stupefyingly dumb?
They're never disappointed.
They generally have...
That's a joke, Tom.
Good one.
That was not a compliment.
Yeah, I wasn't listening.
Okay.
Most of the time people don't know, at this point after 30 years being in the business, we've revealed a lot of our sides during the ups and downs of our career, and we've done a lot of interviews, whether it be print or other, and they know now. They don't come and say, hey, be dumb. They know that it's a part of a characterization.
I think that basically the question, I think your intent was, do people expect you to be the character you're on screen? Like, as you know, when they meet Bob Hope or Benny or Dr. Schuler, are they the same as they are on television? And that gets sometimes tedious for the comedian, I think.
Let's go back 2 decades to the height of the Smothers Brothers' popularity on CBS TV in the late 60s. And when we look back on it now, the material that so troubled executives at CBS and led to the eventual cancellation does not seem that outrageous. In retrospect, it seems tame, but at the time, it was pioneering stuff for network television.
I don't think that, we've had this question asked us many times, that I don't think even though it was tame, I don't think they still will allow someone to go on primetime television, entertainment, and say get out of Central America, Nicaragua, in comedic sketches in prime time, or get out of the Middle East, stop messing with other people's lives. So in reality, that was the only problem we had, and this still exists. I don't think, especially with Dickie and I, who we are. We're not Archie Bunker, Carol O'Connor. We're who we are is right out here in front.
See, there's a difference there. I always said, you know, when Archie Bunker said something outrageous, Carol O'Connor didn't say it. Archie Bunker did. It was fantasy. It was fiction. And television variety, when you say it, even though you're in a sketch, they seem to think you're saying it.
We are.
Sure,
yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And
but the point is that today it was tame then, it would be tame now, but it's still, that's the point that got us off. We weren't saying anything.
Ed Asner lost his show because of his private statements, not because the Lou Grant show was sagging in the ratings.
Yeah.
And that's somewhere in between.
Your show wasn't sagging in the ratings.
No.
It was very, very successful.
Well,
and
Bob, we're still off.
And you should be.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Well, in truth, you
work me up.
You were ticked off. For 3 or 4 years, you were ticked off big time.
Big time. I couldn't even laugh. Lost my sense of humor. Saw Jane Fonda on The Tonight Show.
This is way back then.
Way back then. And I said, that's what's missing from my life.
What's that?
Sense of humor. And I went back and found it again. Just didn't take it that seriously. You want to save the world. You want to do something righteous and good, and not ignore your instincts and your intelligence when you're doing your art or your performance. But there is a point where you balance it off, what can be done and what can't be accomplished.
And Fonda went on. She realized she was a little strident back then, and she's gone on to incorporate her philosophies in her art.
But you guys, and she was a little strident, and now she's taken the edge off.
Yeah,
but
she mellowed it out.
You guys were not really, maybe to some ultra-conservative, you guys did not have a strident persona. You were an endearing couple of guys.
It was a loving show.
When the process of all social structures, things change, and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. When it was a very heated time for everybody in the 60s, and great changes, and we happened to be at the scene of the accident. We had a national show that reflected that viewpoint. So we got a lot of attention, but we've had a great career.
Oh, no question, but I'm still floored
by it. Except for 20
by
years, you know.
I'm still floored by it, looking back, because, all right, so you have Pete Seeger on, and he sings an anti-war song, or Elaine May does a bit about film censorship, or David Steinberg does some material that's a little bit out there on the edge. So what? The show was successful in the ratings, and this is a business.
Yeah, but there was pressure from the executive branch of the government to get us off the air.
You think the Nixon administration pressured CBS?
It's documented. Yeah, Tony Lasowitz, and they did the Watergate investigations, and we were the first success.
On the enemies list.
Before enemies, they pressured CBS.
There were some weird people on that enemies list. You know,
Yeah.
Joe Namath was on the enemies list.
Oh, he's a
we
threat.
never made the list because
'Cause
we
we're
were the
already-
first victim. They said, "Oh, now let's start a list."
We were the prototype.
It's been 20 years, but to me, that was the endearing thing about the Smothers Brothers show. Yes, there was political protest, but there was always a hopeful edge to it, and there was a happy, bouncy tone to the show. There was not a mean-spiritedness about it. It wasn't like, hate this person.
We never attacked individuals. We had a couple of writers, and we said, come up with some satire. And they said, how about LBJ? He was president. We said, okay, work on it. They came back with a couple of bits making fun of the daughters and the wife. I said, no, you don't
That's not
understand.
what we do.
We don't do that.
And
Hit
it's
the
not
man.
the little guy. It's
Hit the guy in power.
The guy in power.
You know, it was a bit I liked. It wasn't a political bit at all. The Honey House. When Bobby Goldsboro's Honey was a mega hit,
Oh, God.
you guys were conducting a tour of the Honey House. Remember
Yeah,
that?
it was a theme park. And you could see the dead dog, and this is a tree she planted, and all that. And at the end of it, I sang the song. I sang it straight, you know, but I pointed to all the things. At the end of it, we come out, the crowd's following me, come out to the finish, and Tommy's hawking the wares, you know. By
It's like
the
a little bit like
souvenirs.
at Disneyland.
Yeah. It was a very gooey, sicky song.
The show was Mason Williams was kind of a moral or ethical light for me during this time. I'd go take the scripts home, something was wrong with them. I'd work it out with him. There were some very wonderful writers that were on that show. You know, Steve Martin and
Rob Reiner was on
Rob
the show,
Reiner,
wasn't he?
and some of the classic old writers, Gene Farmer. There's a bunch of them. But we've just done some shows that just had these wonderful writers too. It's like feels like 20 years ago today, but with this experience and smartness and craft that we didn't have back then.
Let's talk about some other members of your family before we move on to the present show, because obviously the brothers are the essence of the act. There's a sister. Was she ever in show business?
No, and she might
two.
well have been. We have two sisters, Sherry, who's a couple of years younger than
Younger than me,
Dickie, and then we have a sister that came along late in our mother's life. So she's 18 years younger. And Sherry could have been, our younger sister, could have been a comedian. But with two brothers, older brothers there all the time, and she was the only sister, and the youngest, she didn't have much of a chance to. But she's got a great sense of humor, very, very caustic.
You scarcely knew your father, right?
I don't recall him at all.
And I do. I was a little older, but we were children in the Philippines when we were evacuated before World War II, so we never really got to know him as a personality, only through secondhand accounts.
He was a West Point guy.
West Point graduate, 29, class of 29. Then we traveled. In those days, it was a country club, the Army, really. And we were in Manila, or Fort J over there. And they evacuated us in May, I believe, of 1941. And that's the last anybody saw him. He was Corregidor, and then the Bataan Death March, and finally died in 1945 of exposure.
Died in Japanese captivity.
He was a North Carolinian. Carolinian.
She did Tar Heel.
Yeah, Tar Heel from
Winston-Salem.
Winston-Salem. And most of our father's family, our paternal side, is still in the South, in North Carolina.
What did your mom tell you about him? Was he a funny guy?
Well,
Generally, you don't think of military people as being all that that humorous.
Well, we hear he had a wonderful sense of humor, but did not like to have the joke played on him. Was more a giver than a receiver. Very much. I guess Mom said that you were more like Smo than.
I don't know. Dad was 17 when he won his appointment, very young to go up to West Point. He was a fine athlete, captain of the baseball team, had 400 average. They played the Yankees, you know, every year, and that's like probably Ruth and those guys. And he was in the middle of his class, very popular, and he loved Gilbert and Sullivan. We found out later after we were doing Gilbert and Sullivan. And Mom said he was really young and naive. They fell in love, got married in Utah. And had he lived, he would have been a politician. He wanted to go to politics. Handsome man, very good looking. And we would have been Tar Heels ourselves, and Tommy probably would have gone to West Point, said probably been a nom, and I would have been a doctor or a lawyer, and we would have been Southerners. And sometimes we fantasize what would life been like.
Yeah.
And
We probably wouldn't have been as close.
yeah,
This is a special relationship based on real experiences, and there's no way out of it, and it just happened. And of all the people I know, he's the most important.
The war in Vietnam keeps on a-raging. Blacks and whites still haven't worked it out. Pollution, guns, and poverty surround us. No wonder everybody's dropping out. But we're still here. Oh yeah, we're still here. We face the same old problem, but we're still here. That weekly grind is stretching out before us. Beeping sensors lurking in the wings. CBS would like to give us notice, and some of you don't like the things we say, but we're still here. He's still there and so am I. You may not think we're funny, but we're still here.
20 years ago, the Smothers Brothers wound up suing CBS. They won a substantial judgment against them following the cancellation of their program. Firing. But time heals all wounds. So here you are back on CBS with your new program. And the key is Yo-Yo Man, right?
Well, the key was a reunion show we did for CBS, and
which we didn't even use the Yo-Yo Man in.
Didn't have Yo-Yo Man, but it was such a warm show with all the people that we worked with before were still good and even better, and
they were better,
focused and looking good, and then they said, well, how about 4 more, and then we did 4 more, and how about 6 more, and 6 more, how about 2 more? They weren't quite sure. It's not a real solid.
Well, in 1 year we've started up and wound down 4 different production companies and formats. They didn't say do 19, they said 4, like you said. It's tough.
They did 19 hours last year.
Yeah.
Before we get to Yo-Yo Man, then, you made a comment during one of the commercials that I thought was interesting. You said that the two of you enjoy a lot of residual emotion from people.
Well, when you were talking about you were 17, 16, 17 during the show, and found that you liked the show, and it was taken off so abruptly, there is a residual emotional attachment to the Smothers Brothers television show and to the Smothers Brothers, I think. And so when they see the brothers doing well, it's a good feeling. It's like having, hey, it's like Muhammad Ali during his last fight. You wanted him to win those things, and I think that's...
Didn't we all think he could win, even when logic said no? Because he was L.A., if it was anybody else, you'd say, this guy's 40 years old, he can't possibly. We thought he would win.
Sure.
And you know what? When we came back with our show, there was a little bit of that thought out there in the professional aspect of
the country. Are they going to be... still got the skills?
Are they going to be disappointing? Their feet, going to... And we knocked the socks off them.
So, and part of the Yo-Yo Man that came in there was during the time that we were person on Grata, most of our jobs dried up in Las Vegas. When we were back, Dickie was doing theater, I was doing summer stock. And when we started working together again, really in 1980, focusing on the brothers, the yo-yo, we started working that yo-yo pretty strong. And it became the centerpiece of our nightclub act, and our concert act, and our club act. And we had no idea when we got onto the television, the new comedy hours, that this was going to be a key and grab people. The Yo-Yo Man's inarticulate. He doesn't talk.
Yeah, we said, how many times can we do the same tricks?
Hey, come on, they're going to get tired of that. Well, they love it. Yeah. And there is a skill involved. And we have our own yo-yo, of course. We're in America, which is called marketing. It's called the Yo-Yo Man yo-yo.
So it's kind of a signature brand yo-yo.
Signature brand yo-yo made out of real wood.
Hardwood
and cotton string, like I remember as a kid.
No plastic yo-yo for you guys.
No plastic yo-yo. But any kind of yo-yo is fine, because the toy is the concept. And it's kind of a Zen eye-hand skill, eyeball, the skill of position is kind of like golf, if you like golf, or any other team. And this is the center of yo. That is perfectly balanced, like hitting a driver, perfect. And it's spinning, and it's, you can explain it, Dickie, it's a stored kinetic energy in a
That's what it is,
rotating
and it's so natural. It's sort of like the planets spinning in the universe. Everything's turning around, and everything goes around a central axis, and that's what the philosophy of yo is like. We live our lives, and we go out and live a great life, and we come back to that center, end of our life, and hopefully we're improved. And the yo-yo is a total focus. There's the Eiffel Tower in honor of the 100 years of the Eiffel Tower. And the yo-yo has to come has to come to the palm of the hand to complete the cycle.
Like the baby, of course, everybody knows
Rock the baby.
Right, rock the baby. Little walk the dog, perhaps?
Oh, that's child abuse. You've got to bring it all the way up.
It has to come all the way to the palm of the hand. The trick
Yeah.
is not...
See, the philosophy of yo doesn't mean you have to be perfect every time. That's why the yo is wonderful. You fail miserably when you first start,
Walk the
and then
dog.
you get better and better. That's sort of have the dog walk and you just burn out his paws. Do the
Yeah.
yo-yo strut. Can you do that? Do the yo-yo strut. Can you do that?
So
See,
these are...
that is called, you know, that's a very important trick there. That's called flying saucer. And what it does is it tightens the twist of the yo-yo string or loosens it. And you know, when you're a kid, you had to twist the yo-yo to make it right. Well, that flying saucer trick makes the string just right.
There's something magic about the yo-yo. For some reason, it's over 3,000 years old.
And you can't watch anybody without smiling.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
That's exactly the way it should be.
And you don't have to buy batteries.
We'll be right back. I speak for a generation when I say it's great to see you guys back together performing and looking so great. It looks like it could be 1968.
Well, thank you very much.
Except Mason Williams got a haircut since then, didn't he?
And we have we like being a comedy team. It's a special thing. People don't do it anymore. It's like a classic form of entertainment.
Yeah.
Tom and Dick Smothers. See you later.
Join Bob Monday night when his guest will be the only actor ever to kill John Wayne, Bruce Dern. Accommodations furnished by the Sheraton Universal Hotel, the official hotel of Universal Studios. On your next visit to Hollywood, visit Sheraton Universal Hotel, the home of the stars.
Thanks for watching Cleveland Live Music. It's awfully bright out here. I'd click on another one of my videos. Quit looking into the sun. Your mother told you not to do that. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel more, there's GoFundMe and Patreon information in the video descriptions. Ooh, ooh!